My name is Colleen Del Vecchio, and I've been on the planning committee for this for 3 years now with Mo and Kathy. And I'm very excited to introduce our first speaker today. LaTonia Monroe Naylor was born in Springfield, Mass. She currently serves in the role of Director of AmeriCorps at Springfield College. She provides training, technical assistance, and member support to 40-plus members. She's also responsible for program oversight, sustainability, and implementation while maintaining funding for the $600,000 program. Ms. Naylor received her Master's of Science in Nonprofit Management and Philanthropy and Certificate of Board Governance and Volunteerism from Bay Path University, and a Bachelor of Arts in Business Administration from Our Lady of the Elms College. She has furthered her professional development as a participant of the Springfield Leadership Institute, Leadership Pioneer Valley, and a plethora of other trainings, conferences, and workshops. Ms. Naylor was recognized as a 2016 Business West 40 Under 40, 2018 Springfield Women's Organized and Extraordinary Women, and the 2017 Stone Soul Community Service Awards. So I'm so excited to welcome LaTonia to the stage today.
So somebody gave me confetti, so she told me to throw it. All right, I got my timer on. And so first I have to say hello to my Springfield College family. Thank you for coming. And the second thing is I forgot to put a contact page in my presentation, so I'll tell you, like I said on my t-shirts during my campaign, keep calm and Google me. If you Google me, you will find me. My children were intrigued when they were in school, and then they said, Mom, we were in class, and we looked you up, and all of my friends could see stuff about you. What are your pictures doing in Google? I said, well, I ran a campaign, people took pictures. They said, oh, well, you know, it was very easy for everybody to know who you are because we Googled you. And I said, well, that's cool, so keep calm and Google me. So, oh, Lord have mercy. Let's get this right. So, hello to everyone. My name is LaTonia Monroe Naylor, and I am here in several capacities, but first and foremost, as the Director of AmeriCorps for Springfield College. I am also a school committee member in Springfield, and just recently started a nonprofit called Parent Villages. I have some of my Parent Villages people here. And most importantly to me, though, is the fact that I am a mom. I have 4 beautiful children that are the lights of my world, 3 girls and 1 boy. And so they are my biggest reason for why I do everything that I do. So the first thing that I want to say is good morning, ladies. Woo! We are in a space of empowerment and encouragement. We are here today because though we have endured circumstances that we pretty much don't understand how or why we've gotten through it, we've looked in the mirror and we recognize some things, and we're acknowledging some things. We are mothers, we are daughters, we are employees, we are aunties, we are all these wonderful things, right? We are women who desire to be great. We are women who want to bust through glass ceilings. We are women who are not content with sitting at tables, but we want to be at the table so that we can make the decisions to help people that we care about and change issues that we are concerned about. Whether it be in our community, whether it be in our families, whether it be in our churches, whether it be in our state, in our country, we women are the backbones of everything. So if you wonder why I have this biology assignment here, this is women. We are the backbone. And it's very important for us to remember this, and this is my mantra for today. There is nothing that would stand without a woman. So look at your sister next to you and say that to her. There is nothing that would stand without a woman. Now clap for yourself. My initial session that I submitted was going to be turning pain into purpose. This is because everything that we do starts at one place. And that place that it starts at, actually, I'm going to come back to this in a second. my what, right? So I told you about who I am, what I do, and everything. But the reason why I brought this up here, and I'm going to dive into it a little bit differently, is I'm going to go back to what I just said about turning pain into purpose. Everything starts in one place, and that's called perspective. Perspective is a particular attitude toward or way of regarding something, a point of view. That is, in your mind, taking things that we have to go through, taking tragedy, taking turmoil, taking frustration, taking hurt, taking pain, and flipping the perspective in our mind so that we are able to look at things from another perspective, another dimension. When we change our perspective, it takes us on another path in another direction, and the trajectory changes drastically. When you look for the good in every situation, you look for the opportunity to learn from the situation. It makes you a magnet for people. It allows you to put ego on the back burner and humble yourself for the mission, for the strong why that you are nurturing. The Power of Positive Leadership by John Gordon really elaborates on this philosophy of positive leadership, of being positive. Nobody wants to be around. I heard somebody say, don't let negative people in your space. I heard somebody say months ago, don't let people rent space in your brain that don't belong to be there, right? So we oftentimes will let things harbor in our minds and cause us to look at things, the negative, look at it as half empty, look at it as, oh, my world is over, everything is over. But everything that ends, then there's another beginning. And when we look at it from that perspective, then we are able to do some great things. We are able to internalize stress, drama, discomfort, and tragedy and turn it into something that will compel us to do something great. And so, have you ever been in a situation or a circumstance, and I want you to think about this, that has impacted your life or the life of a loved one, someone that you care about? Think about your response to that situation. How did you respond to that situation? This is very important. Because when we think about these different situations, you see people stressed out, they're at work, they're at school, dealing with your kids. Oh my goodness, I have 2 teenagers. If anyone has had teenagers, raise your hand. You know what I'm going through. We're all here. We're all here. People tell me it'll get better. Can you assure me of that? Okay, thank you. I have a 10-year-old, an 11-year-old, and a 13-year-old, and a 15-year-old. And my 15-year-old, she kind of walks the line of making me think about if I want to turn myself into prison. But I've decided I have to stay clean, and I'm in a public official. I can't go to jail for strangling my child. So I'm like, I'm restrained here. But, sometimes you deal with financial issues, right? And so what did you do? How did you respond? Did you get excited and go out and volunteer? Did you say, forget about it? I'm going on vacation. I can't deal with this right now. Because if I have to deal with this, I don't like my response. Did you just sit there like this man, just like, oh my God, I don't know what to do? Did you just tune out and get on your phone and start texting and watching TV and say, you know what, I'm closing myself in. I'm going to binge watch today. Did you decide to go out and be an advocate for something great? Are you deciding to go out and mentor a child? How do you respond to these different things? And the reason why it's important to think about how do you respond to things that happen to you or that affect you is because it will help you figure out what your perspective is. Sometimes we think we are very optimistic. Just because we are the most optimistic person in the room doesn't make us optimistic. Sometimes you're around a bunch of pessimistic people. So the less pessimistic person is going to be the most optimistic one, right? So we have to be careful, and we have to really relook at how we're responding to things. Why did you respond that way? Look at this one. He's like, talk to the hand. I am not paying you any attention. Is it because you were afraid that nobody would listen to you? Were you busy? You see her, she has the baby, she's cooking, she's dressed, she's doing everything. Sometimes we get so busy with everybody else's stuff that we don't have time for our own stuff. We get so caught up doing everything for everyone else. I heard Kathy say earlier, you get so stretched trying to be a good person, trying to love on people, that you're not loving on yourself. And you're not taking care of yourself. And what happens is when you get drained enough, you start to see things from a very bad perspective. You ever have that feeling like, oh, just forget it. I just can't. Everything I do. Because you're so frustrated and overwhelmed because you're doing everything. And if you do everything, you can't do one thing right. And then sometimes you're just in pain. Sometimes you're going through so much and you're just like, I just don't know how to respond. I'm hurting. I lost somebody I love. I care about this person. I don't know what to do. Sometimes you're afraid. Sometimes you're just like, you know what? I'm trying to still figure out what's happening. That's usually me with my children. I'm like, what is going on? I thought I remember teaching them to have manners. Where are they? You know? And so you go through these different situations. So again, it's very important to think about how did we respond and why did we respond? It takes an internal check, an internal introspection, a searching of your own heart and your own mind to be able to figure out why you responded to things in a certain way. And the reason why this is important is because when you talk about the power of art, the art of influence and power, is very difficult to exhibit influence and power if you don't know who you are or why you're there or what's going on. Nobody follows somebody that doesn't know where they're going or where they're headed. Nobody wants to be on a sinking ship. If everyone knew that they were getting on the Titanic and it would drown, nobody would have gotten on it, right? So, look at that beautiful face. There's a book called Start With Why by Simon Sinek. And then there's Daring to Lead by Brene Brown. And when you go through your things and then you read these books and you're like, oh, no wonder that worked out that way. So that was kind of the situation. I didn't read these books before, but now that I'm looking at them afterwards, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. It's very affirming. And so a lot of people will talk about a why. And I changed this to my strong why. There's a lot of reasons why we do things. There's a lot of reasons why we decide to engage in community. There are a lot of reasons why we decide to pick up our phone or not, or put it down. Sometimes I'm just like screening phone calls. I don't know if I want to deal with that one, right? But the why is very important because it keeps us passionate about the issues that keep us moving, to endure tough situations, and when our will is challenged. Whenever you make up a decision to be a leader, whenever you make up a decision to go and try something new or take a risk, your will be challenged. You will have days that you will question, why did I do this? You will have days that you feel like crying in the corner and you don't want anyone to see you because you're afraid that they won't be strong enough to wipe your tears and you want them to see you as strong all the time. So your will be challenged. And it's equally important for us to know that we won't always know how to get from point A to Z. We won't always know how to do the research or how to connect with the right people, how to build the right connections, or how to craft a message or build a strategy. A lot of times we come into this work and we think, if I take a risk, I have to know how to do everything or I'm not taking a risk. Guess what? That's not a risk. Walking by faith is not seeing the wall. You're walking because you don't know that it's there or you're hoping there's not one there, right? So when you're taking a risk, you can't sit down and say, I counted up all the costs. I know exactly what's going to happen. Bam, I'm going to do this. Because that's probably not the journey that you need to go on. If you don't take a risk, you won't be challenged. If you're not challenged, you won't grow. If you're a butterfly and you don't go through the process of busting out of that cocoon, then you're never going to be a successful butterfly. You're never going to fly. So who wants to be a butterfly and they're sitting there on the corner watching all the other butterflies fly? I don't want to be that butterfly. I want to fly with the other butterflies, right? So in order to do that, there's a pressure, there's a push, there's a challenge. We'll be stretched. Our minds will be stretched, right? Because the way you think today and the way you're going to think a year from now after going through something very life-changing is not the same. And this is why our perspective is so important, because when our perspective is, I want to get something out of this situation. My grandmother passed away last week. And we were all going through all kind of things, but the thing we looked at was, how did she go? She went surrounded by family. We all got to say our goodbyes. It was just such a beautiful transition. So you look for the positive in everything because something good comes out of that. And there's something that you can take hold of. There's a saying, to the pure, all things are pure. And so if you're looking at something with a pure heart and a pure mind, you will get something out of it. And you won't see the negativity, and you'll be able to stay focused on what it is that I need to do. People say, how in the world do you operate in politics and do all these things? And don't you get upset when people call you out and they slander you and they do this? And I say, I don't really care. And they said, well, what do you mean you don't care? You don't care if people are disrespecting you? I said, I don't care because it's not about me. It's about the children. It's about education. It's about the work. So if I'm focused on that, all this other stuff can happen, but it's not going to hinder me from reaching my goal and getting where I need to go. Because purely I'm looking at, this person must have a bad day today. Oh, their husband must not have done what they're supposed to do, or maybe, I don't know, they're a little stressed out, right? Maybe that child didn't get taught, the manners that they needed, or whatever the case may be. So when I look at it from that perspective, I don't take it disrespectfully. When a kid lets the door shut on me, I say, excuse me, young man. They look at me with their pants sagging down. I'm like, excuse me, did you realize you just let the door slam on me? I'm sure you didn't mean to do that. But I'm just letting you know, next time you might want to be mindful. And, oh, ma'am, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Why? Because I gave them the benefit of the doubt, and I was willing to take it as a teachable moment. But I could have said, oh, my goodness, these kids these days, they just had a worse day. Like, who has time for that? I have too much work to do. And so a lot of times people want to get into positions of power because they want to lord over people. They want to just tell somebody what to do. And you know those people because we've worked with them. How did they get here? Why are they here? Oh, my God, would they just quit, retire already, right? And then they just happen to have the right cousin. You know those people, they come in a job and everybody knows they're not qualified, but and here they are walking around like they're all well endowed and have it all together, and they want to tell you how to do your job, and you're like, yeah, you don't know your job. I'm doing your job too. So some people get into leadership positions. So there's a difference between being in a leadership position and actually being a leader. You can be the person at the waiter, somebody's talking about being a waitress. You can be the waitress and be the one in charge. And everybody comes to you because you actually know what to do, even though there's a manager over there that doesn't have a clue, right? Because leadership is about perspective. It's about learning how to take advantage of the opportunity. It's about making sure that you are competent and qualified, making sure that you have the skills, and even if you don't have them, surrounding yourself with the right people. I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but it's very important that people understand that. Because when we go back to talking about my strong why, which is why I have my beautiful picture there, because I want to make sure I don't forget. The reason why I say that is because when you have this ability, this piece of you that people can see that's authentic, that's real, that people know you just care, and you're just passionate about this issue, people will fight for you. People will fight with you. People will look for ways to support you and open doors for you. People will look for ways to fund what you're doing. You'll get checks in the mail and say, wow, I didn't know people knew about me. But because somebody saw something in you and knew that it was pure, they knew that it was authentic, and they knew that you were motivated by something more than sitting in that seat to make the decision, but you were motivated to create change, you are motivated to create impact, and you're motivated to create a legacy that shifts systems, that shifts atmospheres, that changes companies, that changes environments, that changes policy. And people know that. And when that happens, it drives fear away in you, because now you realize, I remember when I started running my campaign and we sat there, it was like 20 people at the table, right, Keisha? And I'm like, wow, this is great, 20 people, woo! By the end of my campaign, there were at least 100-something people in the room, right? Cheering me on, people volunteering, coming out, wanting to do, because they caught hold of the vision. They said, enough is enough. We need people that really care about our kids and really want to change. And so that allows you as an individual to put all those, because, we're not going to wear fear on our sleeve. We want people to think we're all like Superwoman or Wonder Woman. But the reality is, inside, a lot of us are scared out of our minds, right? And so when people start to support what you're doing, it starts to bring a level of confidence to you to say, wait a minute, I don't have to be afraid. I can do this. I did that. I did that. I did that. I can do this, right? So There are people that feel what you feel. There are people that have thought what you have thought, and there are people that have gone through what you have gone through. But they didn't have the courage or the bravery to step out and try that, and try to be the leader and try to be the example. So when they see you doing that, they're going to feel a little bit like they're obligated to help you get there, right? Because they see that there's something in you. And so back to my strong why. So my son, look at this beautiful picture. Now, my son was in 2nd grade at this time. My son from pre-K through 1st grade was an honor roll student. He was friendly, personable. Everyone loved him. They thought he was great. He got to 2nd grade, and I started getting phone calls. First, it started out once a week. Then it was twice a week, 3 times a week. And so finally, my husband and I are like, you go this time. No, you go this time. No, you go this time. No, I got to work. I can't get out of work today. I got a meeting. I can't go. No, you go. Well, I'm self-employed. I can't go. Da-da-da. So it got to a point where every single day of the week, one of us was going to the school to check on our son because we were getting so many complaints about this sweet little face being a nuisance in the classroom, being bad, being hateful, being nothing ever positive that whole year. And so finally, I called one of my friends at the district, and I said, you know, I don't know what to do. I'm going to have to take him out and put him in private school. He was at a charter school at the time. And she said, well, put him in White Street. And I'm like, well, I don't know about that, because my oldest went there. And let me tell you a few stories about what happened when she was there. It was not a good thing. My baby came home with a nervous breakdown, you know. And she said, no, it's a new leader. Try it. So I said, okay, I'll try it. I'm not trusting that it's going to work out, but I'm going to try it. So my husband and I went, we met with the principal. Long story short, we loved it. So we put my son in the school. 2 weeks later, hello, Miss Naylor, your son is cutting up in class. He's throwing chairs all over the place. You got to come in. We got to have a talk. So we go, and I'm like, oh, my God, what am I going to do? Now, let's backtrack a second. Before we got to this place, they mandated that my son had to get therapy in his former school. So he was getting therapy. They had a psychologist, whatever, coming in, checking on him. I'm trying to figure out why does he act perfectly fine at home, but all of a sudden when he gets to school, he's this terror that I don't recognize. And so then they said, well, he needs medication. I said, yep. We are not getting medication for my son because I know he knows how to behave in church. He behaves well at home. He does not need medication. Y'all need some structure up in there, and since I can't tell y'all what to do, I'm taking him out. So now we get to the place where he's at this other school. So I get to the school, and this sweet little teacher, she's a beautiful lady. So let me tell you about my D. He is the brightest student that I've ever met. He is such a sweet child. His smile just melts your heart. His mind is like a human calculator. And she's going on, and I'm just cheesing because I'm like, a whole year I haven't heard any of this stuff, you know. Talk good about my baby. And then after a few minutes, I realized, wait a minute, didn't he do something wrong? She said, oh, yeah, about that. Yeah, he threw chairs around, you know, and we had to take all the kids out. And I'm like, ooh, that's kind of bad, you know. And she goes, yeah, but the reason why he did it is what I'm concerned about. I said, well, what do you mean? She goes, well, Miss Naylor, your son has been traumatized. I said, what do you mean my son has been traumatized? She said, he's been traumatized. I said, well, how? She goes, well, he thinks he's going to get in trouble. So because he thought he was getting in trouble, he figured I might as well just tear up the whole class. Then that way I could get in trouble for a good reason, right? So that's why he did it. She said, but he's a good kid, and I don't want him labeled, and I want to help you help your son. And the tears start to flow out my eyes because that was the first time in a year that somebody offered to help me help my child. And so we did whatever we did. We got a plan in place, and my son turned around. Within a year, he was getting nominated by all of his teachers to be a Young Scholars Scholarship recipient. He got a scholarship award already. He is a mentor, and he's helping out other students, and he's one of the lights in his school, right? And the reason why I bring that up and I share that story is because all these other things happened to me up to that point. But sitting there in that room thinking, how in the world does a mom who's as dedicated as I am, with a dad who's as dedicated as my husband is, how does our child get picked out and get treated this way and I just imagining the emotion and the isolation and all the things that's going on in the mind of this baby who's so sweet, but yet treated as if he's already on his way to prison. And that shook my tree, and that got me outside of the scope of looking at just my babies. And I said, what about all the children whose mothers or fathers don't know that they're supposed to look out for their kids? What about the kids that don't have mothers and fathers because they're in DCF or foster care? What about those that come from another country and don't know that there's a system that you can actually advocate for your students? And it was at that moment that I decided I was going to run for school committee. Now, this is important because, and I'm not going to get into this, but the reality of it is we only see what we see on the surface. We don't know what people are dealing with internally. And nobody knows what you're dealing with internally as a leader and as someone who's taking risk. But when we remember why we're doing something, then we get to the what. And the what is not the position. The what is not the position that I hold at Springfield College or being on the school committee or starting a nonprofit. That's not my what. My what is the legacy that I want to leave, the impact that I want to make, the fact that I want to change the educational system forever. And I understand that in order to do that, I have to start somewhere. So guess what? I have to be in these roles because that's going to allow me to be able to make some changes in our education system. And so my thought process started here. Has anybody ever heard of that saying about the babies in the river? If you went to Bay Path and you were in a nonprofit program with Jeff Grime, then you would have, because he told that story every single time he had a new class. So he said, there's babies in the river. Where do you want to be? Do you want to be at the top of the river, trying to figure out how they're falling in? Do you want to be on the side looking at what's happening as they're in the water? Or do you want to be at the bottom trying to help get them out? And I remember at that time I was at the bottom of the river. I was mentoring. I was doing all kind of youth development, volunteering all the time, which is why I ended up going back and getting my nonprofit management degree. Because I'm like, if I'm going to volunteer for 50 hours, I might as well get paid for it. So, no brainer, right? And so, but I realized something very important that day when he asked me that question. I didn't really want to be at the bottom of the river. I didn't mind being at the bottom of the river, helping one student at a time, but I wanted to be at the top of the river because I wanted to understand why in the world are they going in there and why isn't somebody doing something to prevent them from going into the river? And you have to ask yourself, where do you want to be, right? Where do you want to be? Because your what can be very confusing. Your what can be all over the place. You can say, oh, I think I want to do this. No, I think I want to do that. No, I think I'm going to do this. I think I'm going to do that, right? Because you really don't know that your life has purpose. Your story is important. Your dreams count. Your voice matters. And you were born to make an impact. And you cannot make an impact if you're everywhere doing everything. But my strong why, my family. So you see my husband and my babies. This is them now. Parent Villages, we had a big event, and they had their shirts on. Is it a personal? Is it beyond personal? Are you concerned about something greater? It's both. It's not an either or an or. It's a both. And the reason why, the difference between a why and a strong why is a why is I've been abused, or I was broke, or I needed a house, or I was homeless, or whatever. And so that will give you a reason to do something, right? But a strong why comes when there's a passion to create an impact or a legacy, and you couple that with something that's near and dear to you. Because what happens is when you get to that point, then now you have to start to figure out how do you make that happen, right? But because you have the personal attachment to the issue, it's always going to compel you when things get tough, because you think about, if I don't do something, then what happens to my babies, or what happens to those babies, or what happens to the next woman who is in my situation and she's treated the way that I was treated. I have to do something about it, because not only is it a systemic issue, but it's also a personal issue. There's a personal conviction that drives you. So how does it work? Well, there's different levels of impact, right? Some people want to do things regionally, state, local, nationally. You have to kind of think about that in a way of speaking, because that's going to, how much fuel you have. Like, you think about a car, and you got your car, and it's sitting in a driveway in your garage, and you don't have gas in it, and you don't have keys. Well, you just have a car. right? In order to get that car going somewhere, you got to have gas and you have to have the keys. So it's not enough to just be in a position, but you need the authority in that role. And the authority in that role comes from understanding where you're going to make the impact and how you're going to make the impact. And so there's types of impact, right? There's civic engagement, there's community engagement, public service, councilman member, Tracy Whitfield in the house, AmeriCorps, appointed board member, community engagement, being a volunteer, intern, board member, advocacy council. There's so many different ways that you can create impact. But this is something that I want to kind of focus in on a little bit. And that is when you look at the different places, and this is my personal platform. This is my how. So I look at the business sector, the service level, the community engagement, and the civic engagement. And at the very bottom, you see integrity, skills, leadership, and confidence. Those are personal attributes. There's certain things that you have to have personally as part of your character in order for people to want to follow you. And again, I talked about nobody wants to follow a sinking ship. Well, nobody wants to follow somebody that's fake. Nobody wants to follow somebody that's a liar. I've learned you don't have to remember what you say if you tell the truth all the time. You don't have to remember who you are if you just be you. And so people will know if you're somebody that they can stand on and stand behind and stand beside. And people want that. So you have to remember, even though you may have all of these things happening for you, you may find yourself going along in these different levels as you start to see yourself growing and taking risk and getting into other positions and roles. But you have to continue to be authentic and true to yourself, have that integrity, develop skills, look for opportunities to develop skills, understand what leadership development is, and it changes and it grows and it deepens and it strengthens every day. Every day somebody else is coming out with a new book. I mean, you look up leadership books and it's like 1,000 of them on Amazon at any given moment, right? But you have to have confidence. And confidence comes when you know that people are supporting you and people are caring about what you're doing and the impact that you're making. I'm going to skip to this real quick and then come back to that. So when you talk about strong networks, right? Strong networks are important to support your strong why, to support your ability to carry it out, to give you your how. And so what does your strong network consist of? So this is my strong network. On the outskirts there, you see collective community. I have a community behind me. A community that I know believes in equity and education. A community that I know believes that every child should have access to those educational opportunities, world-class education, right? There's a community of people that believe whatever you believe and whatever you're passionate about. You got to find that community and become a part of it. There's my church community. I love my church family. But guess what? Well, all the great things that we do together, the prayer and all of that spiritual support, there's some things that I can't share with my church family, but I can share with my community or vice versa, because there's different kinds of support that comes from those different levels and those circles. There's my sister circle. So Lakeisha is part of my sister circle, right? And so my sister circle is about 8 of us, right? And my mom is part of my sister circle, which is so funny, but that's another story for another day. But your sister circle, those are the people that are going to tell you the truth. They're going to look at you and say, you know what, that is a sack of baloney and you need to get it right. Oh, you posted that on Facebook? Are you kidding me? What's wrong with you? Right? You need somebody that's going to challenge you and remind you of who you are and what you stand for if they see you pulling a little bit away from where you're centered, because they care enough about you that after all the lights are done and all the money is gone, they're the ones that are going to have to help hold you up and carry you through to the next place. And so your sister circle is so important. And again, in these different circles, there's going to be overlap. But there's also going to be some things that you just can't do in one form. There's certain things I can't share, even with my sister circle, right? So I have my close family. Certain things I go to my sister circle for, they come to me for, but then there's other things I have to go to my family for. Certain things that my husband only can do. And I'm not talking about, physical stuff. There's certain things that he just gets and he knows, right, because he's my husband. Or certain things that my kids do that they just know. Mommy is going out volunteering today. Everybody, let's go. Like, there's no question. We're all going volunteering together, right? There's certain supports that your family provides. And my mother is huge because she's part of several circles that I have. But my mom, anytime Like today, I'm at a conference all day. She's like, okay, no problem. I'll go pick the kids up. I'll make sure they get to soccer or their games or whatever. So you need that. But then, like I said, going back down to my husband, children, and mom, actually I intertwined it. So close family is outside of them. But then my husband and my mom and them, it's just something about having that core. So the reason why I mention that is a lot of times we are going and going and going, and we never sit down and really think about what our strong networks are. Who are the people that we can go to for certain things? If you have this idea and you decide you want to start an organization and you need funding, well, who are the people you can go to? Who are the people that are going to cry with you? Who are the people that are going to push you? Who are the people that are going to pull you? Sometimes you need somebody to pull you over because you're just like, I quit. I remember, I was thinking about, making changes, and I took a pay cut to go to Springfield College, which I thought was kind of crazy. But like I was telling somebody earlier, sometimes you make choices because you understand where you're going. And my children are so important to me that I'd rather get paid less and be able to be there for them mentally, physically, and emotionally than be at a place getting paid more and not present and not there, right? So it's very important. We have to continue to push that, and we have to continue to understand how important that is, because these networks help us to keep ourselves centered and grounded in each element of who we are, right? And so I implore you to create your own networks and look at what does that look like for you. Who are those people? And if you don't have a sister circle, you need to get a sister circle, because your sister circle, I'm telling you, they're your chosen family. You have your family members that you just end up with, and you're like, oh my God, is he coming to the I don't want him to come. Why is he coming? Well, that's your uncle. Well, I don't really like him that much, He's really an embarrassment. But your sister circle, you choose. So they're not going to embarrass you because you picked them. So if they embarrass you, you're probably embarrassing them too. Right? And so I want to go back to this really quickly. I talked about passion and drive. And I didn't say it per se. But what I did say is we want to be careful when we think about where we're going and our what, that we're not looking at a position as our what. Like I put president here. I was joking. And I said, I'm going to be a president of something. Not the United States. Sorry, y'all. I don't want that position. But in the way of speaking, I'm thinking presidentially, right? I'm thinking about being a leader of something great. And when I think about my trajectory of where I want to go, I don't put that position as my goal. I think about the impact, right? So the passion and the drive. So I keep everything consistent with that mindset. So I love people. I love animals. But guess what? I'm more concerned about education. And no offense to you that love animals more than education. I will not judge you. But I'm not going to find myself at a shelter for animals, because if I spend the time doing that, it's taken away from the time that I need to be building up to create the impact that I want to create in the educational sector, right? So we have to be very careful about what our passion is, and this again is why you have to look at your circle, because sometimes we're in circles and we're like, no wonder I'm exhausted. These people are using me for everything that I have. People will suck you dry if you let them. People can be leeches. And sometimes you don't know that until you're about ready to pass out. You're like, my goodness, every time I get around you, you need money. Every time I take you somewhere, you want me to pay. Like, come on, right? People will be that way. So you have to look at your circle and think about where I want to go. Are these people that are surrounding me going to help me get there? And if they're not, sorry, bye, Felicia. I'm out, right? Because you cannot have people around you that are pulling you in a direction that's away from your drive and your purpose, because your passion is going to fulfill you. The money is not going to fulfill you. At the end of the day, that runs out. The passion is what's going to fulfill you. So if somebody's pulling you away from that, you are going to be drained, and you're going to feel like you're on empty all the time because you're not feeding your soul. And so I keep an eye on my extracurricular activities, my civic opportunities, and I make sure they're all streamlined to what I love the most, youth and education. Remain focused on your strong why, because it will get tough. Know your how. For me, it's my faith and my familial support. My faith is everything to me. Anything that intertwines with that. I used to go to parties and people are drinking and I don't drink, and people, oh, well, I don't trust people who won't drink. Well, I don't trust people who want me to drink. So let's get that straight. Oh, I respect that. I respect it. I'm glad you respect it. Because if you don't, that means I don't need to be here in this circle, because I got to stay true to who I am. Beware of time thieves. time thieves. You will have 0 time left, and you will wonder what's going on, and it's because you've given it all to places that you should not have given it. And now the time that you need to have for the things that you most care about, you don't have, right? And so I have about 4 minutes left. I want to squeeze this in. Self-awareness. This is important. Again, you cannot influence people, you cannot help people, you cannot persuade people if you are not balanced. If you're walking around, oh my God, I don't know what to do, then people are going to be like, okay, not really interested in what they have to say. They can't help me too much. Set boundaries. We heard somebody say no. No is okay. If you don't feel strong enough to say no, I've learned, I'm almost 40, y'all, and they told me when you get ready to turn 40, you start to say no to stuff. So I think I'm there. But say not right now. Let me think about it. I have other obligations or priorities. Let me come back to you. If you're not able to say no, but if you're like me, just say no. No, I can't do that. Regroup. Sometimes you think you've done everything that you're supposed to do. You thought, wow, I was supposed to do this. This was supposed to happen this way, and it didn't. That doesn't mean you failed. That just means now learn from that and regroup and now say, okay, am I still concerned about that? Do I still love that? Is that still what I want to do? Am I still fulfilled by that? Continual self-reflection. Are there any things that I need to work out? What are my opportunities for growth? What are some steps that I need to take as an individual for my personal well-being and balance? And the last thing is goal setting. This is my work plan that I use, but set up a work plan. Get yourself some goals and objectives. And again, the reason why you have to do this is because, again, you can't lead people if you don't know where you're going. You have to know where you're going. You have to know who you are. You have to know why you're doing it. And you have to remain conscious of how you're going to get there. And you're not going to get that way if you don't have a moral compass and you don't have a plan. So with that final thing that I thought I forgot about, stay ready. There's a saying in the church world, be ye also ready. Stay ready. You don't have to get ready if you stay ready. Education, training, leadership development, continuous improvement, networking, continual community engagement, and don't get comfortable. The comfort zone is a dangerous place. We learned that last year from one of my members. The comfort zone is a dangerous place. So remember, if you're going to take risk, you got to be willing to get out of your comfort zone. You got to be willing to be stretched, and you have to be willing to stay true to who you are, regardless of what obstacles come your way. So with that, I say thank you. I do have 3 minutes, I believe, so if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask at this time. Yes?
That wonderful slide you put up just before, are you willing to share that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll make sure I get it over to Mo. Any other questions? Any other thoughts? Yes.
I'm curious about the teacher who identified the trauma in your son and what kind of training she had to recognize that's what was going on.
Well, the principal that took over there was very conscious of what she was dealing with, the community that she was in, and she ensured that her teachers got trained in that. So a lot of the teachers that weren't with her vision, and it's again, she took risk, they left. I don't want to, no, these people can't read, these people won't do this. And she said, okay, well, if you think like that, you can go. And those who believe in the people, believe in the community, and believe in the process, let's work together. And so that was one of the teachers that got training and stuff like that. So she was very concerned about the child and how do we help the child. And let me say, before that particular segment of my life, that school, the first time when my daughter was there, we went to open house. There's 28 kids. There were 3 parents that showed up. Me and my husband and another parent. After, with my son, when we went to open house, it was so many people you couldn't get through the door. And it's all about leaders who are willing to take risk and willing to believe and getting people that can come around them and support the vision. I thought I saw you. Yes.
What I like is that you shared your personal stories, and one of the panelists, I'm sorry I forgot your name, but it's important for us as a community and as leaders to share what we go through because we don't know what someone else is going through. I mean, we just shared a lot of stuff that I didn't know she went through, and I went through similar situations because sometimes people can feel alone and isolated. So I just wanted to point out that I like the fact that you share your personal stories, and I know you personally, so So I know you do it just for that reason. So great job.
Thank you. And
You are a really compelling public speaker.
thank you.
And I'm wondering, because I feel like a lot of us in this room want the ability to do that, to engage with an audience. So I'm curious, have you always been able to speak your mind and to organize your thoughts this way and communicate it to other people?
That's a good question. I promise I'll be quick. So, I don't know. I'm an evangelist, so I don't know. Sometimes it's taking longer. But I have been speaking for almost 20 years now in different settings. But the ability to really speak your truth comes from knowing what you're talking about. So I always tell people, don't get up and talk about something that you don't know or that you haven't gone through or you haven't internalized for yourself. When you understand it and you can relate and you internalize it, people believe in that. And that all goes back to the authenticity. And that's what draws people. So don't get up, yeah, that's great. But if you talk about who you are and what's brought you through and what you're connected to, and then you start to look at your toolbox and say, okay, these are some things I'm lacking, these are some things I need, then you're able to build. And that's why going back to that staying ready, education, Leadership Pioneer Valley was really great for helping me to figure out who I am. There's a lot of fears that I had and I didn't know how to overcome them within myself, but I learned those strategies of how to do that because I was willing to for the sake of getting to where I wanted to go. So thank you so much.